Welcome to the Exodus Companies podcast. My name is Jared. I am the founder and CEO of the Exodus Companies. This is a movement from culture to build a new community. Back in 2021, we had a range day that was titled Chaos Range Day, and for good reason. This range day did not go as expected in any way, shape, or form, and even though we had a plan leading up to the range day, it ultimately resulted in one of the most chaotic filming experiences that I have ever had to date. And I know a lot of you can relate to that. You've had an experience in your life where you have planned and created a plan that should have been solid. It should have led you down the path of being able to execute exactly the way that you originally thought that you could. But ultimately, as you started navigating your world and that experience, you saw it all fall apart. And I know that you have seen this happen because this is normal. It is normal to create a plan and then ultimately have that fall apart and unravel in the moment. And Chaos Range Day was one of those moments for me, where as a younger leader, I was trying to lead a media team through a range day where we were filming some important content, but at the same time, I forgot some of my equipment. I was doing horrible with my lines for the video. We had one of our firearms that was not cycling properly, and we needed it to cycle properly for the video. And I just remember on that day, just getting more and more frustrated. And at that time, in that moment, you have an opportunity and a decision that you have to make. You have to choose whether or not you are going to stop, whether or not you're going to throw in the towel, whether or not you're going to give up in that moment, or whether or not you're going to turn the corner and continue onward. And the way I like to think about our lives is we have these decisions that we make every single day. And it doesn't matter what you do. At some point in your life, you're going to come to a point where either things are falling apart, maybe even by your own doing, or maybe you just don't know enough in the moment. Maybe you don't know what the perfect step is. But the important aspect of it is taking that step anyway. And when we look at people ahead of us, people that are in positions where we want to be, you guys have heard me say this before. Ultimately, these people have made it, quote unquote, made it to those different places because they have chosen in the moment of duress, in the moment of frustration and stress and turmoil, they've chosen to continue acting no matter what. And recently, I have a very, very recent example of a similar range day that almost erupted into another Chaos Range Day. And again, you might look at our content and say, these guys must have it all together. I see that they have good audio, good lighting, and it might look like on the outside that we have a perfect plan. In fact, right at this moment, I'm freestyling this video and I don't have a perfect plan, but I understand that as we go forward with the content, we have to be able to pivot. And yes, we're going to create a plan, but things eventually are going to come to a head where things are not working out the way that we would like them to work out. So on this range day that we were recently having, we were talking about pistol braces and the current ATF ruling on pistol braces and their new interpretation of them, aka basically outlawing them or calling them SBRs anytime that they are put on pretty much any type of firearm that has a barrel length less than 16 inches. And on this range day, it was supposed to be extremely simple. We shot some B-roll at the beginning, some edgy content that looked pretty cool. It was exciting and cinematic and, really engaged the viewer. And then I had a talking section toward the end. And this whole range day was off from the beginning. We had a plan laid out. I had some basic scripts, but the couple days before that, I didn't have enough time to prepare myself the way that I typically would like to prepare myself. I found that as I was driving to the range, I was already feeling that pressure. And I know that from my own history that when I'm feeling that pressure and I feel like I'm ill-prepared, usually things start to compound. And in those moments, it's super easy for me to say, hey, I just need to go back. I might need to just throw in the towel. I might need to do this another day. And I started to see those thoughts creeping into my mind. I started to have the self-doubt. I started to see myself falling apart. And as we neared the talking portion of the video, that's when the pressure really started to mount on my shoulders. I had a couple different situations where I messed up my lines because guess what? I didn't have enough time to script out the lines the way that I wanted to. And I take the videos seriously. Anytime I'm sitting down in front of cameras, I really want to do a good job of communicating with you guys. I really want to set an example of what it's like to communicate well to the people around us. but I'm also human. I also make mistakes. I know that it's unrealistic to expect perfection out of myself, but yet I often find that I hold myself to that high of a level. And some people might say that that's unhealthy for me to hold myself to that high level, and I don't think that that's the case, but I do think having some flexibility in our own mindset and understanding that because we're human, we're going to make mistakes, and we are going to have these different situations where things start to fall apart. It is the decision that we make in that moment that changes whether or not that is a ruined day or ruined experience or a learning experience that ultimately propels us forward. So what did we do on that range day? Well, Brent and I actually had a conversation where we were trying to decide whether or not we would throw in the towel early. Light was quickly fading. We didn't have the shots that we wanted. We originally wanted to get 3 or 4 videos done. We were, I think, only through our beginning part of the second video. So we weren't even close to the schedule that we had laid out. And there was a couple minutes there where I seriously said, hey, we should just throw in the towel, go back to the shop, and then do this another day. And ultimately, at the end of that range day, we didn't get everything done, but we did finish what we started with that first video. And I still thought that my talking portion of that video was horrible. I had a couple remakes that I had to do, some bad cuts, and I just felt chaotic in my mind. And I'm sure that you can relate to that, where you've just felt inside of yourself that there was this turmoil that was occurring, but yet you still had to do the thing that you set out to do. Or maybe you quit, and maybe you regretted quitting in that moment. I know in my life, the times that I have quit when things get hard are the times that I regret the most. And I have yet to see an example in my life where I have decided to continue forging my path onward, and then I regretted doing that. The irony of this is the video that we edited is honestly probably one of my favorite videos that we've ever done. And you could blame that on a perspective shift. Maybe you could say that in the moment, because of the stress, I still stepped up to the plate and performed, even though I had some self-doubt. But the reality is, in that moment, I thought that I was failing. In that moment, I looked at myself and my performance and my ability to speak, and I was like, man, what is wrong with you? And I was really hard on myself. I was really hard on myself for not taking that intentional time at the beginning of the week, rather than waiting until the drive over for the range day to try to figure out what my plan was or what I was going to say or how I was going to transition. Rather than taking 4 days to lay out the perfect script for the video, the perfect B-roll and the perfect storyline, we kind of winged it. But there's a catch to this story. There's an interesting part to this story. Currently, that video on our YouTube channel has almost 200,000 views. Almost 200,000 people have viewed that video in less than 24 hours. And so what does that mean? Well, obviously that means that the video that we posted achieved the desired objective. So was that a failure? I certainly thought it was when I left the range. On the drive back to the shop, I was frustrated. I voiced my frustration. I mean, I try to remain positive. I try to think forward. I try to remind myself that every time that I've failed in the past, it's been an opportunity for me to learn. It's been an investment in my future. I've deposited a new skill set into the account of my own experiences. But in the moment, that's really hard. It's really hard for us to understand that that is that chiseling that we talk about on the podcast all the time. Those moments that are extremely difficult are the moments that are refining you. And I know that that might sound crazy. I know that you're probably thinking of experiences in your own life where you're like, hey, that really sucked. And there was no refinement to be had. And I just think that that was a crap day. And it is what it is. But I promise you that if you have the right mindset, you can look at those different days that fell apart and you can learn something from it. And maybe you did throw in the towel. Maybe that was the wrong decision. That is very possible. Like I said, the days that I regret the most are the days that I gave up. So if you have that regret, I would say, remember that regret. Remember what you felt in that moment when you decided, hey, I don't have what it takes. I'm throwing in the towel and I'm quitting. When you quit early because of fear, when you quit early because you felt incompetent, when you quit early because you didn't think that you had the ability to continue onward, those are human experiences that we all have. Doesn't matter who you're looking at, doesn't matter who you look up to. Every single one of those people have the same exact doubts, the same fears, the same struggles that you face. Yeah, maybe they're different a little bit. Maybe you might think that they don't know exactly what you're going through. Maybe they don't know exactly what you're going through or what your story holds, but I promise you They have felt the same things. They have had the same trials, same struggles, same doubts that you have. So am I happy that we continued on with the range day? Absolutely. I'm extremely happy with the video. And as I was reviewing the video, I had this weird infighting going on in my brain where I remembered this chaotic range day where I was like, man, that range day fell apart. And I'm watching myself on camera and I'm proud of myself. And maybe that's because I decided to continue on with that video. Maybe that's because I'm proud of myself, because I kept pushing forward even though I wanted to throw in the towel. But at the end of the day, I look at that performance, that speech, that video, and it is our fastest growing video to date. Now, what I'm not saying is you sticking it out is going to result in success every single time. You might stick it out and it might suck more, but that's just the reality of our life. Sometimes we stick it out because of principle, because maybe in that moment, what you're learning to do is investing in your own discipline so that you can continue to become a more disciplined person, someone who is more structured, someone who is able to continue on with that fortitude. It doesn't mean that just because you stuck it out, that it's going to be your favorite day ever. But I promise, as we look back on our lives, those different days where we faced those trials and we continued anyway are often the days that we value and cherish the most. So leaving you guys with some encouragement, as you enter this next week, remember, you can make plans and you should make plans, but be prepared in the moment to be able to pivot, invest in your own discipline. And when you find yourself questioning whether you should go on anyway, because ultimately you will be better for it. You will become a better person. And as you become a more excellent individual, you will be able to invest more in the community around you. And ultimately, that is our mission here at this company. And that should be your mission in your community for the people around you in your world. Thank you for listening to the Exodus Companies podcast. Consider supporting us by paying this episode forward. Share this episode with your friends and family. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow our social media pages. Subscribe to our newsletter for inside information, pre-released blogs, and much more. And consider our apparel so you can support what we do. And in return, our apparel will help you speak values and truth in the world around you. Join the Exodus. We will see you in the next episode.